guys, it's Benny. The entire internet is buzzing with brand new spicy fuel for the conservative gossip cauldron, which is Jeremy Boring out at the Daily Wire. Many people are beginning to speculate whether this was an amicable parting or whether there was something a little darker going on here, whether Jeremy Boring was pushed out or some saying locked out, whether the Daily Wire is suffering financial troubles, and whether some of the larger scale, larger format products didn't actually pay off and might have doomed the Daily Wire. We're not exactly certain because, well, we don't work there. And best that we can say is that we know a couple people who do, and they're all locked down. So what can we do next? We can listen to people who did work at the Daily Wire and who were fired by Jeremy Boring, who I think bring a very level and rational take to this whole situation. And that would be Candace Owens. Candace Owens and Brett Cooper. Both of them have commented on this. Candace Owens just did a full show on it, a full stream on it. And Brett Cooper has posted a meme about it. This is Brett Cooper's meme GIF response. Jimmy Fallon nodding knowingly and winking, smiling, happy. Both of these women who were rising stars at the Daily Wire, I mean, massive rising stars. And you know, you have to know, like, cash cows for the Daily Wire. And this was Candace and Brett were big deals. Their deals went south. And, well, people who know them say that Jeremy Boring was a big part of it. Jeremy Boring is now out of the Daily Wire. Many people are pointing to this sanitized press release in Axios about how he's going to stick around and advise. But what does that even mean? Where's his new title? What's he going to do exactly? Where's he going inside the company? Typically, if you make a lateral move or if you stay on to work on certain projects, well, you're going to be named in some role. You were the CEO. So what's going on here? Candace Owens saying that that's the most mysterious part of all of this, that, well, he's got no place to go, actually. It makes her think that there was something more going on. Watch.
What's interesting is I was awaiting kind of Ben's statement. These two are best friends, refreshing to see what Ben had to say about this on his X feed. He has said nothing across his social media channels. That strikes me as odd. That's a very loud silence. And rather, he went very corporate. He gave a statement, which is exactly the sort of a statement that I would have had expected him to give, to the Daily Wire on the Daily Wire website. This is where you can actually find a statement from Ben Shapiro and Caleb Robinson. Now, of course, Ben Shapiro is not becoming the CEO, but he is very much considered the face of the Daily Wire. And so it would have been incumbent upon him to say something. And he handled that in an extraordinarily professional manner. That's what I want to point out. This is a corporate, proper announcement, which he should do. I want to be clear. This is exactly what Ben should do. And this is the way it should happen. And these things shouldn't happen on Twitter. But again, for your best friend, and many times that Jeremy has said, I'm his only friend, it feels like there's something more than that, that's meeting the eye, right? So here is a statement from Ben Shapiro. Again, can be found on the Daily Wire website. Jeremy's hard work and brilliant leadership have been indispensable to the growth of this company from an idea to the largest conservative digital media company in the country, said Shapiro. Jeremy is a tremendous talent, and we're thrilled to get even more of his creative focus in the business as we head into the next phase of expansion. We can't wait to see what he does next. Whoa, that's quite the last sentence there. We can't wait to see what he does next. Pull it back up again. I just want to show what we're not hearing, right? He's a tremendous talent. We're thrilled to get even more of his creative focus in the business. In what capacity? As we head into the next phase of expansion, what has he become now that he is not the CEO? And then you say, we can't wait to see what he does next. Again, this feels like we're moving on. That's what it feels like to me, and I could be wrong. And of course, we will update this if suddenly they're like, he is going to be the chief, but you get a title or you don't. And I'm not hearing a title here.
Candace Owens, who also retweeted this post from Brett Cooper with the meme, so no love lost there, saying that this is the anniversary of her firing from the Daily Wire because of the Crisis King controversy, a controversy that Jeremy Boring himself helped foment. Here we go.
We're going to see what Brett Cooper would say. Largely felt like she remained silent on her exit, maybe because she had to remain silent on her exit. We don't know. But she tweeted this in response to the news, a GIF of Jimmy Fallon kind of looking like he wants to burst out laughing and then just sort of nodding. And I think that probably says it all. She followed that up with this, which says a lot. She says, genuinely excited to see where Ben and Caleb take the company next. So she, if we're reading that correctly, is thinking that this was a good move for the company. We have not yet had a tweet. And you guys, can you live check from Matt Walsh or Michael Knowles? They have not said anything about the news. Jason Whitlock has come out and he has said this as a joke. My understanding is Jeremy will focus full time on smearing me, Tucker Carlson, and anyone else who disagrees with the God King. God King, by the way, is what Jeremy calls himself. He calls himself the lowercase God King. So, yeah. It seems like he will not be missed by Jason Whitlock. Then we have people who are starting to put pieces together. Now, these are swirling rumors that are coming from various reporters and people that are, like me, just trying to read what's possibly going on.
Then Candace Owens diving into her own personal interactions with Jeremy Boring, effectively saying, listen, he felt off over the last couple of weeks, and that is a matter of fact. If you go over to Jeremy's timeline, you can find some real, well, tough posting, I guess you could just say. A lot of stuff that's really controversial, but also that's very combative, right? And that seems to have a very hard edge to it. I don't know, man. I don't know. I met Jeremy Boring. I met him at a movie premiere, right? The Gina Carano movie premiere. It was like a couple years ago, 2022 maybe. I met him then. So I don't pretend to know him, right? Like that's it. We've seen each other in passing at these things. But yeah, it does seem like there's quite a bit of, I don't know, hard edge to what's going on, including, but not limited to, the Crisis King psyop. Candace Owens talking about this and going through some of the tweets that seem to show Jeremy Boring off.
Recently, he was just sort of doing and saying a lot that felt off. And in the public sphere, everyone was commenting on this, just kind of going, okay, I get that you offer a lot of commentary, but something feels in this environment emotionally off. And when I say emotionally off, I would think the fairest way to summarize it would be to say that he was being unnecessarily confrontational with everyone. Like it just felt like, does everything need to be a confrontation? This was followed, and this was recently. And what I'm going to show you is literally just the last 2 weeks of Jeremy's tweets. It was just a lot of emotion coming from Jeremy Boring towards people that I would say, generally speaking, don't have a lot of issues with others. Like these are not people that you expect are going to have fights picked with them. They're not confrontational people, so to speak. I mean, and people are all texting and rumbling and saying like, what's going on? Like, why is he being so confrontational? I mean, crafting a message about Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan, Jason Whitlock, Ian Carroll, and primarily it was conversations that had ideas that he did not agree with. And his reaction to those conversations didn't seem even with the conversations that were being had. You know, me going on Theo Vaughn, Ian Carroll going on Joe Rogan, and then this tweet rather that he had about it, describing it as the worst day for Jews that he's ever experienced in his lifetime. I mean, that's a strong statement. Yesterday was a terrible day for American Jews. We're talking about Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn. Okay. The embraced by so many prominent voices of demented, conspiratorial, anti-Jewish voices is one of the saddest, most alarming events in my lifetime. This way lies madness and worse than madness. That, I think, if you are a person and you watched the conversation between Ian Carroll and Joe Rogan and me and Theo Vaughn, you didn't get that. Like that wasn't you didn't do that. You didn't put your head down and say, in my life. Like, pull it back up. I mean, that's very strong, right? That's the most alarming event in your lifetime. Like, look, I'm only 35. I've had more alarming events in my lifetime. And I'm talking like, it was alarming to me when I was in kindergarten and we did our first fire drill. That felt like more of an alarming event than what I watched transpire between Ian Carroll and Joe Rogan. They seemed to be having tons of conversation about things that were fun. They were thinking, challenging each other, pushing back and forth. And actually, Ian Carroll explicitly said, like, this is not about Jews. And I want to make that very clear. Like, we're talking about the state of Israel. Theo Von told me that he gets milk jugs from McDonald's. He's the only person in the world that gets milk jugs from McDonald's. So at a certain point, you start to wonder, okay, is this you're the front-facing CEO. Again, you've branded yourself as that, and you've said 1,000 times, I want to be the front-facing CEO. Well, that means that every tweet that you issue is going to necessarily backlash that's going to be felt by the Daily Wire as a business, because you're saying, I am the face of this company, right? I am literally the face that you can buy shaving cream from, okay? And so that was strange. It was just strange. Objectively, it was perceived as strange from the public, I should say. And then he got into a fight with Jason Whitlock, who's like, he just talks about sports all the time. And they announced that they were interested in having, and by they, I mean Ben Shapiro announced that he was launching a petition for Derek Chauvin to be pardoned by President Trump. And it was met with a flurry of reaction. Some people said this is absolutely not the right time. Most people said it's not the right time for this and it would actually hurt Trump to do this. And then other people who were more measured and just said, like, why would he want to go back to Minnesota prison if he gets pardoned federally? He still has his state. And Jason Whitlock was one of these people who said that this just feels random. Again, he comments on sports. I would say 98% of what he comments on is sports. So he responded to Ben's petition, which, by the way, I agree with Ben that Derek Chauvin was wrongly convicted. Ben knows I agree with him on that. We've spoken about that on Backstage together. I also think it's ill-advised because of the state crime, but whatever, open to a debate. Jason Whitlock writes, what's going on here? This seems out of nowhere from the Daily Wire, given the fact that it's separated from Candace Owens. Now, his reason for saying that is simply because I did the documentary on George Floyd. But, I don't own George Floyd or own the documentary. And then he goes on and he says, if Trump took this on right now, it would sabotage and overshadow other agendas. I believe Chauvin was wrongly convicted, but the timing of this campaign seems out of place. Okay, that's fair critique. You could just respond evenly to this. Here is what Jeremy shot back. He wrote back, if Ben Shapiro cured cancer, Jason Whitlock would find something in it to bitch about. Okay. Wow. Okay. Maybe not a fan of Jason Whitlock's sports commentary. Maybe Jason Whitlock is getting it wrong on sports commentary. Jason writes back and he says, seems like an overreaction. Seems like something a LeBron fan would say about me or Stephen A. Smith. Someone refresh my memory. How often do I discuss Shapiro? This seems really overcooked. I'm asking legit questions and Jeremy is lobbing personal attacks. Weird. I'm not allowed to question. And then Jeremy responds to this and he says, you're allowed to do whatever you want, which typically involves being a dick towards us any chance you get. And hashtag just asking questions is a cowardly grift. If you want to make an accusation, be a man and make it. I'm like, okay, this is like, fight me outside. Let's fight right now. You're like, whoa, I feel like this is something else could be going on because this can't be about me saying this is not the best timing with Trump. And it just felt very aggressive. It was perceived as aggressive. Jason Whitlock then went on his show and said, I don't know what this is. This is a total overreaction to what I've said. And again, this was being debated in public. Even Matt Walsh said, here's what I think. I responded to him and I said, I don't think this is a good idea because of his state. Like, he would have to go back to Minnesota and be in a tiny cell, which his mother hated. I don't know why that couldn't be the level of respect that was being given back to Jason Whitlock. Again, someone who majority just comments on sports and then wades in politically on a variety of topics. So we were seeing this, and then he got into it and started saying that Jason Whitlock, who has been someone who has condemned Andrew Tate over and over and over and over again, started saying that he backs Andrew Tate. And that is just objectively not true. It's objectively not true to say that about Jason Whitlock. So it was a lot.
Then Candace Owens jumped into the very public switcheroo with Brett Cooper, where Brett Cooper lost her show at the Daily Wire because of contract disputes. Many people speculating Jeremy Boring behind this. Brett Cooper obviously celebrating. Jeremy Boring was one of the only people that she unfollowed. People track these things. She unfollowed Jeremy Boring after she left the Daily Wire. And then, of course, her friend took over. Candace saying, this has been an unmitigated disaster.
Brett Cooper, obviously, the backstory of that, she was without a question the breakout star of the Daily Wire. She is just tremendous talent, very young, Gen Z, did something different with the comment section. She kind of announced that she was leaving. It was considered unceremonious because the public wasn't expecting it. This was back in December of last year. And it was heavily rumored at that time amongst YouTubers and internet sleuths that Jeremy then handpicked her best friend and maid of honor. Brett Cooper got married last April. This girl was her maid of honor. Her name is Reagan Conrad. He had handpicked this young woman to replace Brett. And the rumors and innuendo online was because he just kind of wanted to get back at Brett. Now, I want to be very clear. That's rumor and innuendo. Neither Jeremy nor Brett confirmed that rumor at all. But what we do know is that Brett Cooper and Reagan did, in fact, stop being friends after this. And what we do know is that Reagan did then take over her position. And what we do know is that Reagan's cousin came out and did a video and at the very least confirmed the rumors that Reagan was supposed to have left the Daily Wire with Brett and then did a 180 and decided to stay because of the money that they offered her, which she said was like, a consistent stream of income. And she felt that that was defensive territory. So that's what we know. We obviously, again, cannot confirm that Jeremy handpicked her to get back at Brett. Reagan taking over the comment section from an objective numerical standard clearly did not go over well with the public. Now, whatever reason you want to read into that, maybe because they felt that Brett was being backstabbed or that Jeremy did something wrong. The show itself is not doing what Brett's show was doing. Brett's show was averaging from 500,000 to 1 million views per a video. Here is Reagan's channel today. This is just a screenshot that we took 1 hour ago. Okay, so you can see that we are averaging about 20,000 views in 24-hour span, or actually less than that. It's just not the show that it was. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Tons of people have YouTube channels, and to some people that 20,000 in 24 hours actually is a lot. But what happened thereafter was atypical. Jeremy did something that I think any person in a boardroom would describe as ill-advisable, which is when you launch something and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, you just pivot. You pivot the product, or you say it's fine, I don't really care. Maybe you're making money, who knows? But you don't blame the consumer. You don't blame the audience of the Daily Wire for not consuming the content. And that's what he did. And here is a video of that. And this, again, was something that the public flagged as this seems like caged emotion. Take a listen.
What Reagan hasn't done is taking acting classes to be more like Brett Cooper. That is just completely absurd. And it's hurt my feelings a little bit that Brett hasn't done more to defend her friend Reagan. Brett chose to leave the show. It was her idea, her stated desire to leave the show and to leave the company. She had personally recommended Reagan to me. Before she told me she wanted to leave the show, she had personally recommended Reagan to me and told me that if she ever did leave the show, Reagan would be a great person to consider to host it, and that at any rate I should give something to Reagan because she should be on screen talent. And I know that most of these attacks on Reagan are completely unfair. They're completely disingenuous. People aren't really raising these criticisms. They're either helping to craft or buying into a narrative which has been crafted by people who want the Daily Wire to fail and want Reagan to fail in the role. And both will be disappointed because Reagan will not fail in this role. And the Daily Wire will not fail. We continue to grow and we continue to succeed.
And then there's finally the rumor of the Daily Wire being out of money and selling. What do I know? I'm not in business with them. I've done corporate media jobs. I'm very happy to have our humble little independent shingle that we've hung here, but Candace Owens saying that there clearly is an indication that the Daily Wire is looking to sell. Here you go.
It was then rumored that the Daily Wire was looking to sell, or rather, I shouldn't say it was rumored, they were not closed off from a sale. That came from Jeremy directly. He gave that to Axios in a statement, and I can show you Axios reported, quote, between the lines, asked about a deal with Fox, Boring said the company isn't actively looking for a buyer, but we're not closed off to an offer. It's easy, and then this is a quote from Jeremy, it's easy to imagine a strategic partnership with Fox or someone like Fox that could be mutually beneficial. I think that we complement Fox and don't compete with Fox, he added, noting Daily Wire's audience is primarily younger and more coastal urban. So it seemed like, I don't know, how would you read that statement? I read that as, hey, we're kind of looking for someone to maybe show some interest in a strategic partnership. That's exactly what he's explicitly stating, which it seemed to me to be unusual because they had been kind of, or at least while I was at the Daily Wire, painting a vision into the future. We're going to take over Disney. And now it's kind of like, oh, maybe we will partner with Fox and, you know, we're not closed off from a sale sort of a thing.
Best that you can do in these situations is to let it all play out. So we'll see what happens. Candace saying that Ben Shapiro not making a public statement is very strange about this. There's been no public posting about it from obviously the most famous person at the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro. And so we'll see. I just have this one final thing to say, which is people are looking for authenticity and they're looking for real connections. This is why people loved Candace and why people loved Brett. And no hate, right? I know people still at the Daily Wire, and I'm doing my best to just call balls and strikes here. But people don't want more corporate media. They don't want more big, controlled, corporate hedge fund media. They want authenticity. They want people to make mistakes, people to build teeny little studios. It's like we're in like a little box here. It's like our humble little build. They want people to reflect their own authentic, interesting selves and to bring interesting, non-sanitized takes and to speak their heart. And they'll be attracted to that always. It's what's made legends out of guys like Tucker Carlson, even though he's been fired from every single corporate media job. Tucker used to work at CNN. He used to work at MSNBC. Tucker had an MSNBC show. Do you remember that? I do. Pepperidge Farm remembers. And what's kept Tucker going is not the corporate media lens and lights and studios, because he's been fired from all of them. He'll be the first one to tell you that. It's his roaring personality and the magnanimity and electricity around that keeps people coming back, right? So it's just a good example. Carlson. And, well, that's what we're trying to build here. You should join us. Like, share, and subscribe. It's more Ben.